Morning, I think. Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. I think Facebook just went live. Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. This is Fitness Athlete Friday, and I am your host, Mitch Babcock, coming back to you guys after a few weeks off the camera. So I want to say hello to Instagram up front, Facebook, and anywhere else you are. As Alan says, we are. Download our podcast on Spotify or on iTunes. Thank you for doing so and listening to us on the road. It's Fitness Athlete Friday, and as mentioned, I want to talk about the return to the rings. We get this question a lot in some of our courses, our advanced concepts, especially when we start to break down advanced gymnastics-based movements of when would someone be ready to return to the rings. Primarily ring muscle-ups is what we're talking about there. So if this is a foreign concept to you, if you're thinking like, man, ring muscle-ups, like what are we talking about there? You should grab a spot in our advanced concepts course. And unfortunately, it just started last week, so you have to wait until 2021. But good news for you, Essential Concepts starts September 14th. So you've got time to jump into a cohort of Essential Foundations before this year ends, and then you'll be in prime position to start Advanced Concepts come the first of the year when we launch a new cohort there. So more on that at the end of the show. But let's get into the business of returning to the rings. Behind me, you will see a whiteboard. Maybe for some of you it's backwards, maybe for some of you it's forwards. That's okay. We'll talk about what's on that whiteboard as we go along. I'll do my best to kind of keep the camera pointed in a direction where you can see both me and on the screen. So what are we prioritizing when we're trying to get an athlete back on the rings, primarily getting them back to doing ring muscle-ups? The first thing that we need to clear and make sure of is that they have enough mobility to be able to do so. Now, flexion always comes to mind. When we're restoring an athlete's shoulder mobility, maybe they're post-surgical, maybe they're just a normal injury, we want to make sure that they have full shoulder flexion. When we're swinging from the rings, we don't need hypermobility of the shoulder. I just need full 180 degrees of flexion, and then the thoracic spine to move and the hips to move as well. So the first thing there would be flexion of the shoulder. But digging into the weeds a little bit, when we start talking about this ring dip position, make sure you guys can see what I'm talking about. When we start talking about this ring dip position, we want to make sure the athlete has extension of the shoulder as well as internal rotation of the shoulder. So those are the two areas that we need to screen and make sure of. Now I've worked with a handful of folks post-labral repair, and restoring that internal rotation can be a bit difficult depending on how many anchors they put in during the surgery. But really be mindful that, hey, in that end range ring dip position, if we don't have restored internal rotation and extension, what ends up happening is that the humeral head does a lot of forward translation and can really get bothersome to the anterior structures of the shoulder. So make sure that we're diligent on restoring internal rotation mobility and restoring extension mobility. Then we can do that loaded, and we can spend some time into the next point on the whiteboard, which is static strength, right? So spending some static time under tension on the rings is going to be important before we even start throwing people up there. You know, the question is always, how do I know if they're ready to even get up there and swing and try a ring muscle up? Well, they've got to have a lot of static strength on the rings in two positions, primarily. The ring support position and the ring dip position, right? I oftentimes start athletes in the ring support position in a toe touch position, right? Toes are still on the ground, but they're mostly unloading their body weight through their shoulders and trying to just get themselves on their toe tips, right? Doing static ring support holds, how long? Well, I'm going to ask the athlete to hold it as long as they can. Typically 10 to 20 seconds is a long ring support hold, right? So I'm not asking an athlete to go a ridiculous amount of time there. If I can, I'll have 5-second holds to start, progressing to 10, and then eventually progressing to 20-second holds, right? So that's your ring support position. Now the ring dip position is that drawing over there to the side. We talked about the bottom of the dip position, and this is one where we'll actually help to improve some mobility in that position as well, as long as their toes are still on the ground when they're in the dip position. So again, just like the ring support, when we did a toe touch assist, we'll do a toe touch assist in the ring dip position and really emphasize on, hey, when you're down here, I want the shoulders to be back. I want you to feel like a stretch across the front of the chest, and I want the ring to touch the bicep. That'll let us know that we're in the bottom position of that dip and holding that position to the best of our abilities. Again, just like the ring support, probably starting at 5 to 10 seconds and progressing to 20 seconds, right? So ring support and ring dip. You can obviously use a band on these rings, but we would recommend using toe touch assist and allowing an athlete to slowly offload and then eventually taking up all of their body weight in the support positions. Cool? That's your static strength piece. Next piece would come dynamic strength. And if you can see that, it's at the bottom, it's getting towards the bottom of the board here. Dynamic strength. So we're starting to move through positions now. And just like that toe touch assist support hold, we'll start with a toe touch assist dynamic movement, pressing through the ring dip with a toe touch assist. This is where your low rings are going to be super helpful so that you can adjust them appropriately for the athlete to be able to keep just their toes on the ground, lower themselves down into the dip, and then press out into full support at the top of the dip. A jumping ring dip is along the same line where an athlete jumps themselves to full support and then has to stabilize at the shoulder to support that full support position at the top of the rings, right? So they get their toe touch assist at the bottom, but then they jump, remove their feet, and support via just the shoulders at the top. So your toe touch assist ring dips typically come first for me. After that, we'll go to a band assisted ring dip. A band assisted ring dip, bring this down a bit further for you guys. Band assisted ring dip where now their toes are completely off of the ground and they're relying only on their shoulders and whatever band tension you give them to help them out. Choosing a correct band weight is important. In the gym, we have green bands that are about 1 inch thick, and then we've got red bands that are about just less than a half an inch thick, right? Those red bands are going to be ideal for a lot of our folks as they give them just a bit of help at the bottom in the ring dip position, but still are unplugged from the floor. So there's a lot of stability demands on board, side-to-side balance control of the shoulder that they need to be able to control into the bottom of the dip and press out while still getting assistance. So toe touch assist, and then we progress them to a band assisted ring dip. I have to be super confident that they trust everything about the ring dip position before we start trying transitions. I need them to know and trust that when they turn over into the dip position, that the shoulder isn't going to be painful there. There's no point in even trying transitions until that point because they're going to be transitioning and guarded the whole time, and they're going to start learning and memorizing compensatory patterns. They're going to start to swim, push a shoulder out, dump a shoulder forward, and do some patterns that aren't conducive to long-term good gymnastic mechanics in the ring muscle up, because they're still having pain. So really triage and treat the ring dip before you have athletes starting the transition. The transition would be the next piece, right? Low ring transitions. And this is a component that gets skipped a lot in people trying to learn ring muscle ups. They feel like they're too good for a low ring transition, and they don't feel like that's going to get them a real ring muscle up on the high rings, when in reality the opposite is true. You have to master the low ring transitions, right? You have to learn to utilize your hip extension force, pull the rings to your low sternum, and then dive with your head coming across the rings, landing in the ring dip position. And we do that safely by using the low rings where the athlete's feet are still on the ground in front of them. Mastering the low ring transition, not only good from a skill development standpoint, but from a return to capacity standpoint, it gives a lot of confidence to the athlete. Man, I turned over super fast through that ring dip and I didn't have any pain at all. That's what you need consistently. A lot of ring transitions off the floor where they don't have any pain moving into that ring dip position, and then they're able to press out. When they've gotten that component, we can start to move to the high rings. And in this point of dynamic strength, we should also add in that they're developing a good capacity of strict ring dips. We talked about toe touch assist dips and band assist dips, but they need to be progressing to the point where they're mastering kipping and strict ring dips with a good amount of capacity. 5 to 10 reps at a time from a strict dip standpoint, and 10 to 15 reps at a kipping dip standpoint, right? Building capacity of the shoulder, strength of the shoulder in the dip. Then they're ready to go up on the high rings. And when we get an athlete to the high rings, and I'll try my best to angle the camera down without tipping it. See what we can do here. That's a microphone. There we go. The high rings, we're really starting with ring beat swings where the athlete gets comfortable swinging, ring pulled at hips, and full ring muscle ups is at the end of the list there. So ring beat swings are essentially just like we would on a pull-up bar where we just control the motion of the swing from arch to hollow positions and controlling it at the shoulder. So they're very small controlled movements swinging from the high rings, but build comfort and capacity in the shoulder from swinging up that high. Once we've developed that and once we're comfortable with that, then we can really start to add some dynamic and some velocity to that ring swing that's going to be required to be able to get a full ring muscle up. I'm going to progress an athlete at that point to saying, hey, can you do a ring pull to hips, which the athlete will come through, utilize their lats, and pull the rings down to their hips and make contact. I have a video coming out for our Advanced Concepts crew that we'll likely share on the ICE page in the coming week that really explains these two drills, the ring beat swing and the ring pull to hips. The pull to hips is so important because it builds good lat strength of the athlete to be able to pull down and push down on the rings so that their body can elevate high enough to be able to sit and turn over the rings. When they've developed those two, they're good at low ring transitions. They've got a good capacity of strict ring dips. Then it's time to say, let's practice a high ring muscle up. And I'm not just going to send them up there and watch them. I'm going to spot and support them on their ring muscle up attempt, which means I'm standing next to the athlete on a box, guiding them through to the best of my abilities as they lift up and turn over in the ring dip position, and there to help them if anything goes sour, right? But again, ultimately, if the athlete's not comfortable turning through in the ring dip and they get up and try a high ring, they won't sit up high enough, they won't throw their head over the rings, and they'll end up failing ring muscle ups quite frequently because they know there's going to be pain when they turn over that shoulder, and you've got to fix that component before you expect to restore full ring muscle ups to full capacity. So those are a few key points there, talking about mobility, making sure they have, of course, full flexion, but extension of the shoulder and internal rotation of the shoulder. Once mobility is restored, focusing on static strength in the ring support and the ring dip position, progressing to dynamic strength primarily through the ring dip if you need toe touch or band assist, and then eventually getting them up to the high rings where we work on swing mechanics, lat strength to pull down on the rings, and then eventually, once they're good to go, full high ring muscle ups. There is a progression to it. We need to make sure we have all the components in line before we just send somebody up there on the high rings. It's a very advanced movement, but you'll have athletes that have pain with it, and you need to make sure they're good to go before you clear them to be able to jump up there and swing and knock out some ring muscle ups. So that's what I have in terms of returning an athlete to the rings. Hit us up if you have questions on that, if you're dealing with an athlete right now. And if you want to do these or see these in person, we have a few spots available for you next weekend. We're in Nashville, just outside of Nashville, CrossFit Hendersonville, and we got a big open gym, a beautiful gym, CrossFit Hendersonville, to ourselves for Saturday and Sunday. It's the first live course I'm teaching in 6 months, since March 12th, so I'm super, super pumped to get back on the road a little bit. Going with my co-pilot, Alan, who you guys obviously know well, and we'll be joining the Morgans down there, Alexis and Zach Morgan, in their hometown of Hendersonville, so very, very excited to get with our ICE team and launch the first live course for the fitness athlete division in a long time. So itching to get down there next weekend, and there's 4 seats available, I think just 4. So if you want to join us, you should act fast and get a room reserved for hanging out with us for the weekend. So that's what will be next weekend. Like we mentioned, Essential Concepts starts September 14th. So if you realize there is a skill set gap in what you know clinically as far as treating the fitness athlete, we'd love to help you and come alongside and see you in our course that starts September 14th. You can still get a spot in that cohort. And pregnancy and postpartum, the other clinical management of the fitness athlete course, pregnancy and postpartum starts the same date as well, September 14th. So a few spots to jump in with the ladies on the pregnancy and postpartum division. So guys, thank you so much for your time this Friday. It's Labor Day weekend. I want to formally wish you all a wonderful holiday weekend as we unfortunately bring summer to a close here in Michigan. I'm sad about that news. As you know, fall means winter, and winter means 6 months of gray skies and cold weather. But nonetheless, we have a long holiday weekend to enjoy, so I plan on doing so, and I hope you guys do the same. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you back next time. Thanks so much. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.